Hello, this is Brooke Ali, and I would like to welcome you to Confessions of a Plant-Powered Sisterhood with Dr. T, Katherine Lawrence, and myself, Brooke Ali. Various nutrition nerds and really goofy people on this podcast.
Yes.
Rebels too.
Because we're coming from all different places and we have all kinds of different backgrounds, but plus we have this commonality between us all. That's really pretty cool. Since this is our first one, we want you all to get to know us. Like, who the heck are these people anyway? And why do they come together and form a podcast?
We're also generational here.
Yes.
Talking about being plant-based and all the wonderful changes that we go through as females in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. And
I'm 40s.
I was in their 60s anyway. I thought I was in my 30s. Oh, shoot. Wait a minute.
it'd be fun to hear a little bit about your journey of what brought you, like what made you go plant-based?
Yeah. I think I have to credit it all to my dad, because the loss of him started me on my journey. His death from heart disease that really got me started because I missed him so much. Came across Dr. Joel Fuhrman on the radio and read his book from cover to cover. And that's what set me on this path.
My story, when I got out of the military, I think my dietary choices had caught up with me and the physical activity had stopped because I just rebelled against all physical activity when I got out. And so I started to put on large amounts of weight. And then I got really sick. I had, when I was 27 years old, I was diagnosed. I had stage 4 endometriosis and ovarian and uterine cysts. And it was very, very aggressive. And I mean, I kind of had a similar experience as yours, Patricia, because I asked the doctor, what is this? There's something I can do. And they just said, there's no cure for this. And their recommendation was medication to put me into menopause at 27 and a full hysterectomy. My mom wanted grandkids so bad. And she called a nutritionist and she made the appointment and she did all the stuff. And I actually got connected with a macrobiotic nutritionist, and she helped me to change my diet, become whole food plant-based, but also with a macrobiotic twist. So there was some fermented foods and miso and stuff like that. And instead of needing this massive surgery, which I felt was drastic for a 27-year-old, we were able to reverse it all. I actually went in for the surgery. And the doctor, it had been about 6 weeks after I changed my diet. He had lost some family members, so the surgery was delayed. I didn't think anything was working because I had these problems for 2 or 3 years before finding him. And they woke me up about 30 minutes later, and they said that, it's a miracle. 95% of my active issues were gone. And yeah, I had tremendous scarring. I had an adhesion around my colon from the endometriosis, but they just kept saying it's a miracle. And I think this is what jumps out for me. My mom, she piped up and she said, "Oh no, she changed her diet. She's eating this weird diet." And this is 18 years ago in Texas, mind you. And the doctor said, "No, that's not it. It's a miracle." And I went on to have boys. So I've had a lot of children just because my mom was a little pushy.
I started to have a lot of issues with just back pain, constipation, achy joints. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I super depressed. My skin was rashes, and I just I was so embarrassed still. Like I kind of hid it from my family. They all leave and I go climb into bed. And it's so hard as a female for me anyway. I don't know. It's really hard to admit when I need help or if I'm sick.
And as a mom.
Yeah. And so finally I went to my doctor, and how they make you fill out that little thing about your emotions and how you're feeling. And it was like, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling like you question life? I mean, they had all these little things that they ask, and you rate it 1 to 10, and all mine were 10. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Oh." And so she's tested me and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, you have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, and you should go keto." And I'm like, "No, what?" And I'm like, "Have you ever heard of the Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine?" And she's like, "No." And so she's looking it up, and she was a DO. And I'm like, "Yeah, there has to be another way." I just can't imagine that this diet wouldn't also help me right now? Like I must just be doing it wrong. So she put me on medication. I was taking Synthroid and then also something for my depression. And that didn't really help. My hair was falling out. I maybe lost a little bit of weight, but I still was not doing great.
Yeah.
We just implemented the macrobiotic diet. And then it wasn't just food though, it was also self-care. And that was something that I always put myself last. And like, she's like, go get a massage, go do this. Like, I didn't even tell anyone in my family I was paying a coach.
Oh,
Yeah.
how long ago was this?
I think like 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, it was really hard for me to admit so like it's weird because like it's your thyroid's here, so I was really bad about speaking up for myself and putting myself first.
That's incredible. Like the turnaround, like the complete, like you dedicate your life to it now, to educating people. That's amazing.
One of the big things I felt, when I first started doing this was that I was alone, and so that was hard because that was like 13 years ago, and nobody did that. And when I was going through graduate school, I was studying environmental toxicology, and I had a lot of exposure to toxic substances because I was testing them. And so I always wonder, where would I be right now if I hadn't changed my diet? Because I do feel like my genetics are definitely there, and they're just wanting to show themselves. But I feel that with the way that I eat and my lifestyle, that I'm able to control them to a certain extent.
New goals. I was in my closet last night. It's like my prayer time. And I remember thinking to myself, because it was,
That's
okay,
good.
thank you. I just started that last month.
Oh, very good.
Yay. It's my only,
I want a video of that.
Did have it, but I was thinking in my closet crying, I don't know if that counts, but I was thinking about like the chaos going on around. And I was like, and I had this thought come over me. This is how healthy people die. It's you kill yourself in your 40s, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I was like, and I'm healthy, and I've like got all of the, I've got myself like primed up or trying to. And then I was like, and then it just all goes down the drain, but I was thinking like, yeah, this is people. I don't know how people make it through their 40s. So, and
it's hard with kids. Yeah.
Talk about this. Yeah. Yeah. It's
and owning your own business.
Yep. I have to tell y'all, I was getting ready for the podcast. I'm like, oh my God, I got to change my shirt and what my makeup on. And I'm like, there's a million things. I'm like, I forgot to put the laundry over, and hold on. Like I need to make the whatever. And I looked at my husband, and I'm going over his list. I'm like, okay, while I'm on the podcast today, you're getting the oil changed and you're going to pick up the kids. And then I was like, what's your plan for getting the kids? Cause I'm going to be on the podcast, so we can't have a lot of noise. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, they get their green smoothies every day at 3:30. Are you coming home to blend them? You're going to blend them now? I was like, they're wearing their uniform from school. They can't play. If you're going to go to the park, you need to change your clothes. And I went over this whole, and he just looked at me. He's like, none of that occurred to me. I was just going to pick them up from school. Yeah. It's like,
oh my God.
You can't bring 3 wild animals and like blend a smoothie and change clothes. Like you need a plan. And he was like, I don't think men think that way. None of that occurred to me. I was just going to pick them up. Like you said, I'm like,
that's it.
That's our disconnect. Like there's a story of why I don't have self-care.
We talked about why we became plant-based, but what about, what are we doing in the world with it now? Because we're all very much cheerleaders for going plant-based. And I mean, I know for you, Patricia, your whole life came full circle when we did the best plant-based conference ever, because
the best.
Thank you. Because our keynote speaker was none other than your hero. And when you introduced him, I cried.
Oh,
yeah. It was so touching. But our keynote speaker was Dr. Joel Fuhrman.
Yeah.
So
was,
yeah.
It was just, that. It was, I don't think I realized it until like a week before that I'm thinking, this guy is coming and he has no idea what he has done to my life. He's just this innocent bystander, innocent victim, like coming in like, oh, okay, I'm being booked for a presentation. I'm going to come up and do that. And I just felt like I have to share this story because it's what brought me here, and I wouldn't be alive. I knew that. I would not have been alive if I hadn't listened to him and done what I did, because my family history was such that, nobody lived after their 50s. They were all gone. Like all our aunts, which is, oh, Aunt Edna dropped dead. Oh, Uncle Tony's gone. Uncle Angelo's gone. Like all these people just dropping dead. And we just accepted it, and then my father. I realized that I needed to make sure that everybody in that audience understood too, that how one person can change your life dramatically for a different journey. I would have been on a totally different journey.
Did you guys have an angry vegan stage when you were like became vegan and you're just like, I'm so mad that
I did as later on, much later on, when I really started to learn about dairy products and women's reproductive health. I felt like, because reproductive problems run in my family, like all women in my family have them. And then put that against, I ate a lot of cheese, like a box of mac and cheese every day. I ate a lot of cheese, was like a central part of my diet, probably the biggest. And I felt really angry about that it didn't, my parents didn't have access to that information. And like the single worst food I could have been putting into my body is exactly what I was eating. And then, and I went through, I think I've gone through phases with my kids, after being told that I was infertile and I needed the hysterectomy, and it didn't matter because I wasn't going to have kids anyway. And then having kids, and, there are phases when I get really mad when I see it being done to them by outside forces.
Yes.
Like it makes me furious that someone with no background or anything, like they just see it on YouTube, or like a random relative or whatever says something. I'm like, they don't know nutrition. Like why?
Yeah.
I get very angry then, because I feel like everybody, you know what I mean? Like everybody gets to have nutrition now. I feel like it's viewed as an opinion. And that's how it's presented to my children. And it really pisses me off. I don't know if I can say that, but it really makes me angry, because my kids are not, sometimes they're not seeing it as science. Like they're seeing it as, well, that's your belief, Mom. I'm like, no. So I think watching it play out in my kids, these same messages, by some of the same people who fed me the cheese and stuff, really like triggers something in me. I'm like, really? Didn't you just see everything that I went through? Like, how could you tell my kid to eat cheese? Like, that's like, they wouldn't even be here if I kept eating chease. Can we all, you know what I mean? That's that kind of stuff. So I think I have periods of angry vegan that come and go when it gets near the kids, probably.
Yeah. What about you, Brooke?
I did for a while. I got really down about it. And I think it was also probably around when I was speaking with Ethical Choices program and going into schools and talking about it. And just like kids would be like, what? Like they had no idea that that's what our food source is, and like basically how our food sources affect the planet and our health and animals. Like they had absolutely no idea. And sometimes it's frustrating because there are people that don't want to know. And, like I had a teacher that walked me out after I did a presentation to an entire auditorium, McKinney High School. She's like, we don't talk about climate change in this school. You can't, I was scheduled to speak for 2 days, and we were only giving like mainstream information, all peer reviewed, nothing extreme, but they just wouldn't even go there. And I had a student come up to me and say, thank you so much for talking about this. Like, it's like she knew about it, and it was just so nice to have somebody educating her peers about it, and it's like, my kids are angry. They're like, what have you done to this planet? It's your fault. Your generation has screwed us essentially. And I'm like, yeah, you have every right to be angry. And that's true. And so it's like, I feel like it's my responsibility now to educate on that and not be like, this is not opinion. This is proof. There's plenty of
I remember like, I had some friends from California or who had like moved to California, and they were really progressive and they were all about the environment, and they drove Priuses at the time. And I remember them like lecturing me on like carbon footprint and stuff. And this is all before I was vegan. And so then when I went through my transition and became plant-based, and then later learned like, oh, a plant-based diet is really good for the environment, I went back to those friends, and they were still like super environmental, but they were eating keto. And then I remember like, as somebody new to that conversation, I was genuinely confused. I was like, but did like, I'm so confused. I just had a lot of confusion. I remember being at the airport one day when I was a new vegan and just learned that, and like somebody, I don't know, from an organization like Greenpeace or something, they were like, oh, will you donate? Will you join? And, save the planet. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. Are you vegan? And they were like, no. I was like, oh, I know, I didn't know what to say. I was like, what do you know? No, I mean like plant-based, like you eat a lot of plants. And they're like, oh, no. I'm trying to save I was like, what are you trying to save? It was so weird. But I mean, like, as somebody who's not been in those conversations, I was surprised when like all my Prius driving friends are.
So I was disappointed that all of this information was being kept from everybody. And I'm still wondering why most people don't have any skin in the game, right? They're not making any money from anybody drinking milk or eating meat, right?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why they can't look at what's going on. Like they're all about the, too much government, and we don't want anybody telling us what to do, and we don't want people making all this money, and we have too many millionaires and not enough money going to the other people. And so why aren't they getting up in arms and saying, well, wait a minute, the way that our country's being run, we have this milk lobby, we have this meat lobby, and they're manipulating the school systems. And why isn't anybody getting up and like, this should be like a major, major big deal. But nobody's looking at that. They're looking at other things. And to me, that's where I got the most upset. It's like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Like, this is just a big scam. Like, why are we forcing milk into our school systems and not allowing any other choices?
Should we close out really quick, just saying a 1-minute summary of each person?
I founded a nonprofit, and we teach nutrition programs, but most importantly, we train people how to teach nutrition classes. And we train business owners how to use them for lead generation to help bring a healthy, positive message around food while also building their businesses. And it's called Food Saved Me Institute.
And it's amazing. I actually took her training, and so I'm certified in the Food Save Me Institute. I am part of Wellness 20. I'm a co-founder with Patricia, with Dr. T, and we do conferences, bring people together and educate on plant-based diet, celebrate everything plant. And I'm also an author of Vegan 20. Patricia.
Happy to be a partner with Brooke on Wellness 20. And we offer classes and challenges, and we've both done books, and we're going to continue to offer opportunities to bring people together to learn from the best of the best, and from just everyday people, how to live healthy lives and just how to have a better quality of life, no matter what that looks like. And I just love what I do.
Yeah,
I love what I do.
Good.
And I love being here with all of you.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Thank you for joining us for the first one.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
I'll see you for the next one. Bye.
Okay, bye.